Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Maurice Brown Show. We have a very special guest on the show today, a comedian who's been performing for 10 years. His first comedy special, We Say Bim, is streaming on Amazon. Dry Bar Comedy, Sirius XM, and Spotify. We're going to have to get him to break down We Say Bim a little bit later on. He's performed at the Oddball Comedy Festival that included Sarah Silverman and Jim Gaffigan. His Facebook and YouTube clips have garnered millions of views. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the show the very funny and talented Steve Soelberg. What's up, Steve? How are you, buddy?
Hey, Maurice, doing good. Doing good. Good to see you.
Man,
This is kind of
good
awesome.
to see you, man. Hey, break down the We Say Bim deal. What's that, Steve?
What does that even mean? Yeah, because my dad is a guy who, it's funny because he worked construction growing up. And you know how construction workers, they tend to be a little bit more loose with their language and stuff like that. So as kids, he did not want us, he's like, I don't want to hear it at home. You cannot swear at home. But then he drew the line like even further, where it was like we couldn't say but. That was like for some reason too far. And I would slip all the time. I'd be like, Dad, we went sledding the other day, but the sled broke, so we just kept sliding down the hill on our butts. And my dad's like, whoa, you forgot who you were. Like, we don't say that word. And I'm like, okay, what can I say? And my dad, honestly, I think my dad said just more in jest. He's like, Bim, we're going to say Bim. And that word stuck for any time that you would say your butt, your bottom, whatever you want to say. My dad would use the word Bim. It became a thing in our family. My dad's kind of a weirdo, but in a good way, you know.
Well, by gosh, Steve, we say Bim.
We just say Bim. It's the word. Try it out. Try it out. It feels
I love it. I love it. Great substitute word, Steve.
Yeah.
You know, dude, we're comedians. You and I are both comics. We can't do what we normally do and get out on the stage. We're in this virtual world now of comedy. What have you been doing to supplement the inability to be on stage live?
I mean, it's been a lot of this, talking to a camera and stuff like that. You get a little bit stir crazy because I don't know if people who need to perform get this, where you start to be a little bit weird, because honestly, I get it out on stage. When I'm on stage, I can perform and be my own person, whatever. And so now I find myself like performing too often. Just like if I'm talking to friends, I'm like, what do you think about this idea? And they're like, don't try. Some of them love it, but some of them hate it when you're trying bits on them, and they're like, dude, I don't want to hear about your childhood right now. I tend to do that.
Now
just get it out.
That happens to me all the time, Steve, with my friends. They're like, he's doing it again. He's using us as test rats. He's doing it again. Mo, I know what you're doing. Go ahead.
Yeah, they have the patience. All right, let's hear it. Go ahead, funny boy. But I don't know, like, you got to find the right friends, right? Who would love to hear it. Because some people, they're like, yeah, I'm down. I want to hear your new bit. What are you working on, you know?
Yeah. Well, you know, this platform is kind of making us a little goofy. It's like we need to be on that stage, Steve. That's where we need to be.
Yeah.
And hopefully that's going to happen real soon. Have you been trying any Zoom comedy?
I've done a number of Zoom shows. So like I have my little brother, he used to live in Abu Dhabi. And so one of his friends, I went and visited him out there and made friends with some of his friends, and they organized a show where it was Abu Dhabi. And then we also had people from Italy and London, and it was just like this really international show. And it was, so that I loved, because like when I'm doing stand up at clubs around the nation, like usually it's centered to that location, you know? And so this was kind of neat to experience this international comedy show. But I do have a problem that I'm like when I'm talking to people with like an accent, I don't know why, but there's this thing in my brain that's like, do it. And I'm like, no, what are you talking about? It's like, talk like they do. And like, because the Londoners were like, so what do you think about Corona? And I was like, well, I don't know. Like, I couldn't not talk like them.
Yeah.
But yeah, like most of it has been like, there's been some bad. I wanna try and focus on the good stuff because man, like honestly, like we do really need to perform as comics. And when we're not, I think we just feel like a little weird. And you can get, I mean, honestly, you can get depressed, you can get all these things. And if you don't get it out, or at least share laughs with people, your life starts to feel real weird. So like doing Zoom shows has been like very helpful. I mean, we've never met in person. I hope to like get out to DC and stuff like that, or maybe we'll be on a gig together sometime in the future,
Oh yeah.
Cause yeah, like hanging with comics, I gotta be honest, it's my favorite thing in the world. Like I just love talking comics and talking to and then feeling their energy and stuff like that.
Well, the thing about doing stand up, and you're right. I mean, it's something that we just kind of need to do. We need to be performing and getting it out. And I'm doing this platform. It gives me an avenue to partly, somewhat get it out. Now I'm doing Zoom comedy, and I stayed away from it for the longest time, thinking that we would be back. And then when I realized we're not going to be back anytime soon, I just dove in and started doing the Zoom comedy. And it's not that bad. It is actually, of course, it's not the same thing, but it's pretty helpful to just kind of stay consistent with it. And I met people from Turkey and the UK and Italy. I got comedy friends now around the world that I wouldn't have had before.
Yeah, comedy, it's more worldwide than we think, which is kind of interesting because I feel like it's a newer art form in some countries. I talked to some folks from India who said we had never seen stand-up before Russell Peters. And then Russell Peters went to India in like, I guess it was like the early 2000s or whatever. And then they were like, whoa, we love this,
Yeah.
And you can see this new art form being born. And I think it's a really cool thing to watch grow. And I love to talk. I'm actually trying to work together to do a podcast where I talk to some folks from around the world and just see what comedy looks like as it's starting out. Because, for me, comedy, like I didn't plan on this. I don't know many comedians who did. I don't know if you planned on being a stand-up comic from when you were a kid. Some people did.
No, I loved Richard Pryor. I loved listening to, the albums and Steve Martin. I mean, I loved it. No, I absolutely loved it. But actually making that leap to get on stage and do it, I can't actually say I ever really seriously contemplated that.
Yeah. Yeah. And it is a huge leap. That's absolutely like you got to take your life in your hands a little bit where it's like, okay, I'm going to go do this thing where,
oh yeah.
And it feels weird. And then you make leaps all the time too. Like when you go, okay, now I'm going to do this for my job, which is, I mean, I don't know how everybody's start out was different, but for me, it was like, and now I'm going to be poor, like, because nobody makes big money right away.
It's the kind of leap that once you do it, you're never going to go back. I mean, if you have that thing in you where it's like, I love this. This is it. Like I'm here and I'm never turning back, because I was a radio announcer and my manager said, man, you should try stand up. And I'm like, okay, maybe I will give it a shot, but it took him to kind of suggest it for me to actually get going, because it is a big leap from just sitting there and then getting up there. That's a huge leap.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And you have guys that go, they're funny in the break room. They're funny at dinner parties. They can get a bunch of people around in a circle and have them cracking up. And I've had guys tell me this before. Yeah, but I'm not going up there, dude. Okay. So
yeah,
different deal.
Yeah. it's a very different deal to have a crowd sitting there and they are judging you, and there's no question about it. They're not gonna be. They're like, is he funny? I mean,
Yeah.
that's your job, and you voluntarily say, yeah, I think I am. That's funny when you said I'm a radio, that you came from radio, because I can hear it in your voice already.
Yes.
Like right as you're starting, I was like, gosh, he's got a good voice. That's a big,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah. Did it for 6 years, man, down in North Carolina. And I got out of it and, transitioned into some other things. I just need to get back into it. But I never
sure.
thought about actually getting up there on the stage and doing it. I tell my wife it's like a daredevil act. It's like, you're
Uh-huh.
Evil Knievel and you're about to jump over 20 cars before you go up there, and grab the mic. That's the
Yeah,
adrenaline feel,
yeah,
It's nothing like it, man. It's nothing like it.
yeah, yeah. There really isn't, and I mean, like doing these types of things, it's been nice, like doing Zoom shows, but yeah, if I'm honest, when people go, what do you think? I go, the in person, and when you like, I think of it as like a breathing thing, like you get all zen about it. When you breathe out a joke and the audience like breathes back those laughs, it feels like there's a living thing that's happening, and it's awesome. Like a new life is being made kind of thing.
I've
Uh,
seen parts of your dry bar comedy special, which is pretty awesome. I mean, you're really a good comic, and I
oh,
know
thanks.
that you had a chance to work with, as I was introducing you, I mentioned Sarah Silverman and Jim Gaffigan, and so you performed in the same festival. I guess it was the Oddball Comedy Festival. But what was it like being around comics like that?
I mean, kind of a dream, right? Like, because
Yeah.
they're my idols. I didn't get to see Jim Gaffigan backstage, but
Okay.
like before the show, they gave us dinner, and Sarah Silverman was there, and she was ridiculously nice to everybody. And that's what I kind of love about comics, is there's this like, I mean, hey, they're up here, and then
Yeah.
in the hierarchy, it's like, yeah, I'm working, but I'm still trying to make my name,
Yeah.
and they don't care. They go, great, because they're like, I was there. And she was super nice. And Whitney Cummings was there, and we ended up talking for a while. And Dimitri Martin, uh, also super nice. And I've been a fan of his since before I even started doing stand up. Um, Whitney has gone back out she started touring around a little bit, and she came through I live in Salt Lake City right now. She came through Salt Lake City a couple weekends ago.
Hmm.
And my girlfriend is a huge fan of Whitney Cummings. And so we went to the show, and I hadn't seen her since Oddball. And I came up afterwards and like, we're big fans and da 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 da. And I was like, I don't know if you remember, but I was at Oddball. We talked a little bit. And she's like, I do remember you. And I was like, dude.
Yeah.
And the absolute genuineness that she had, where she would, she's like, look, I know we have to stay 6 feet apart, but if you want to come to the front of the stage, do a selfie, and I'll be in the background so that we can do the whole social distancing, but also kind of still connect. I was so impressed with that, because I really think comedy, a big part of it is just feeling that human connection with people and being able to
Yeah.
laugh about whatever struggles we're going through, and to be able to just feel like, yeah, man, we're all humans here, just wanting to laugh at weird stuff that's happening to us.
Well, you're right. I mean, comedy is an interesting community when you're talking about entertainment and the arts. I think, and this might be a biased statement, but I honestly, genuinely feel that stand-up comedy is the purest form of the arts that there is, because what you're doing is you're going up there on that stage, and you're going to befriend people you probably wouldn't talk to in front of a Walmart.
Right, right. Yeah,
You would
that's
not.
true.
But now for the next 30 to 45 minutes, we're going to be pals. We're going to hang.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
to be able to pull that off is somewhat of a miracle to me. Total utter strangers, you make your friends, And if you're good at it, of course,
Mhm.
you got to be good at it. But that's
Right.
what you're trying to do. And to pull that off is nothing short of a miracle to me.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
when you mentioned Sarah Silverman and how you like being around other comics, I've heard Jerry Seinfeld make the same comment. He just said, man, I just love talking to comedians. Matter of
Yeah.
fact, I don't want to talk to anybody else. If you're not a comedian, I'm not even going to be interested in talking to you. So it's something about this community, because we are actually pulling off something that is really the unthinkable for the average person.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. And that community is crazy to me how strong it is. Like, I can spot a comic before they tell me they are. I don't know how and I don't know why, but when we're going to a comedy clubs, you go to
Yeah.
a club that's not your own, you see somebody and you're like, you perform here, don't you? And they're like, yeah, I just started doing stand up 2 years ago or whatever. And like, yeah, I can
Yeah.
tell. I don't know what it is, because it's not like a look or whatever. Maybe it is a look. I don't know. I don't think it is though. I think there's something like in their face that just says, yeah, I we've done this thing together. I'm sure other people have had that too. It'd be interesting to find out. Like, I would imagine, like, combat veterans, I think I've heard them say something similar, and not to say it's the same as, it's not the same at all as combat, but there's something in your look that changes a little bit.
Well, Steve, they say that the most frightening thing for a human being to do is to be a public speaker. Out of all the things you can be afraid of, right?
Which is so weird. Yeah.
That's the most frightening thing for a human being. So the fact that we're not only speaking publicly, now we're seeking a reaction. Like, you have to like me too. You have to show me that you like me as well. Which makes it even more of a challenge. And we're kind of like daredevils. I think the act is a daredevil kind of act. Like, whoa, we're
Right.
actually sometimes, Steve, before I go on stage, I'm like, I don't believe I'm about to do this. Here it is. Here it goes. So, but at the same time, we love it. It's fun. It's exhilarating. And it's our lifeblood. And like you said, I mean, we need to be back up there. Let me ask you this, Steve. What is it that motivates you to perform as a clean comic?
Some of that's just my upbringing, like just who I am.
Yeah.
But then I'll be honest, there's another part, because when I do shows that are clean, I do have a lot of people who will come up to me after the end of the show, or message me on social media or whatever after, and say, thank you for doing that.
Yeah.
Because comedy, it needs to be able to reach everybody. And some people don't want to go to the comedy club because they feel uncomfortable.
Right.
Or they feel like there's going to be stuff said that they don't, whatever. And I don't care. Like, some people go, so you not like all types of comedy? No, I don't really care what type of comedy anybody wants to perform. And I think they need to do whatever they feel they need to do.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm wanting to provide a style of comedy that can be accessible, that you could potentially share with anybody. If you're on a date, I'm not going to say anything that's going to make you have to go, oh, sorry about that, at some point or whatever.
Right.
And I know other people crave, like, I've done shows where I've had people go, hey, thanks for being clean. I've also had shows where people go, do you got any dirty stuff? And I'm like, no, not really. I just try to do funny stuff, and I hope that resonates enough with people that I can keep working, Cruise ships have been tough. Like, I don't know if cruise ships, they always say you need a clean hour and a dirty hour.
I've heard that. I've never done a cruise ship, but I've heard that. Yes.
Yeah. They want a clean hour and a dirty hour. And I always counter with, how about I just give you a funny hour? It's like, who cares? Like, am I a comedian or am I there to do whatever, But again, art, it's subjective. So I guess you get to choose what you want. And so I'm not going to say they can only be this or that thing or whatever. But yeah, for me, I really want to provide content for people who are seeking something that everybody could watch. and enjoy.
I had comedian Scotty K on the show last week. I don't know if you've ever met Scotty K. He did a dry bar recently,
Oh,
and
cool.
he was telling me the same thing. He does cruise ships, and they have well, he calls it a family hour and an adult hour. And
Yeah.
so for him, his experience was you didn't, of course, they're looking for you to use obscenities and expletives. That's why they call
Sure.
it the adult hour. But he was able to kind of like transition his jokes to that quote unquote adult hour.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and I guess his humor was maybe a little bit more for adults, but he never went there as far as being rated R. He kept it clean.
Yeah. And I can totally see that because there are jokes that it's like, look, I want to do this joke about this or that subject that is more adult themed, but it's not.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I even have some jokes like that where I was like, no, I don't want to do that joke in front of a kid. But
Yeah.
but from an adult, sure, that's fine. And I'm not trying to be gross or whatever.
when I when I started out doing comedy, I did a show, and I have like jokes that are for adults and
Yeah.
not for kids. It doesn't mean that I'm using profanity. So anyway, I went to this contest. I had just started out, and I saw this table of kids, and I'm like, oh wow, I'm not going to talk about this subject. Some kids
Uh-huh.
here. It's a restaurant, it's a family restaurant or whatever. But anyway,
Yeah.
it was a contest. So one of the kids at the table was in the contest.
Oh,
And dude, he was so nasty. The kid
really?
was 14, Steve. The kid was 14, and he
That's
had a potty mouth. His parents were sitting right there. And guess what else? He won the freaking contest.
of course, yeah. And I
But
think
anyway, I mean, I thought that was kind of interesting. But you see all kinds of things in this world of comedy, man.
oh yeah, yeah. I think there's a something to it when we see a certain art form, like even as a 14-year-old, he might be
Yeah.
going on YouTube or whatever and be like, what's funny? And the ones that might get more views, it might be the ones that might be a little bit more dirty. And he's like, I guess this is funny. And I truly do think style or whatever you appreciate is actually more malleable than we think. Sometimes we go, hey, I like what I like. And sometimes that's true. But I do think that if you go a certain way, like looking at a certain type of art or whatever, always,
Yes.
I hope this doesn't come out weird. I'm not saying, I don't know. I try to be too politically correct. I just think you like what you like, and if you look at it a ton, you're gonna like it more.
Yeah,
So
I'm also like you too. I mean, when it comes to like, I'm a clean comic, but if I go to a show and a guy's not clean, if he's funny, it doesn't really matter to me. I like to laugh,
yeah,
and if it's funny, it's funny. I don't advocate, certain types of verbiage, but at the end of the day, man, if you're good at what you do and you can make me laugh, I mean, I don't care. I mean,
yeah, yeah.
that was funny.
That's
That was
exactly it.
gold.
When you're laughing, then it's like, hey, what am I gonna do, man? It was funny. I can't help myself.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%, man, 100%. And Steve, like I said, I was watching your Dry Bar comedy special, which was pretty cool. Tell us about the power of the pirate song, Steve.
the pirate hymn. Yeah. So this was like, I got to pick the hymns at church one day for the congregation, and my dad, I go, what should I choose? And he's like, I don't care, just don't pick the pirate hymn. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, I have no idea. Now, this joke, this is a true thing, because I really did ask this, and my dad really did go, don't pick the pirate hymn. And I go, what one? And he's like, it goes like, ooh. And I was like, what? I have no idea. You're making a foghorn sound.
Right.
Like, what are you talking about? And then, so then he sings it with like a pirate, like accent, whatever. The song is called Who's on the Lord's Side Who, but my dad, like with a pirate, is like, who's on the Lord's side who, and now is the time you show. And like, it made me crack up. And I was like, dude, that's hilarious. And
Yeah.
I'm singing that now because How could you not? I mean, I'm a kid. That's the thing is I think people think a kid in church is going to be like, oh, I want to be holy. No, you're a kid. You're still a kid. You're like, come on, somebody do something funny. And so
Pretty
I
much.
was
Yeah, that's
like,
pretty much
I was
what
like, I
you're
want
waiting for.
something
Yeah.
funny at church. Yeah, you know it. The times when you laugh the hardest in church are when you're not supposed to laugh, right? If they're like, don't laugh
Absolutely.
at that, but whatever, and you're just like, like I'm in church and I'm not supposed to laugh, but that's funny. And so that's what I wanted. I think I was still a performer back then, you know. So
That's
just saying the
when
pirate
you
man.
get that's when you do more laughing. And when you're a kid, anywhere from 11 to 14, and there's a lot of laughing going on in church. And
Yeah,
and
yeah.
a lot of laughing going on in church. So I can and I was guilty of that, and with a bunch of other friends. We were bad, Steve. We were bad, but we had fun.
You had fun, and honestly, I really do believe that was the way it should be. I had a little. Every once in a while, I'll have somebody who will be like, "That's not appropriate," you know, that you shouldn't be
Right.
making a joke that because during the joke, I go the lard, like they when you're singing the lard side, you have to say the lard like a pirate, right? And they're like the lard, no, the Lord, the lard, no, the Lord, and they go, no, you'll see him, the lard, he's out there walking on the water, and I and I know that's kind of like so people go, hey, are you making fun of that? No, I still think like Jesus walking on the water is an incredible miracle and stuff like that. But I do think Jesus would have the ability to laugh at some of this stuff where it's like, yeah, walking on the water isn't a natural thing. And like I could do that type of, and I think we hopefully, hopefully I can not be irreverent, but also make people laugh and be able to have fun. I don't know. I don't do too many like church themed jokes per se, but I do. You got to do what you grew up with, you know, and I grew up going to church. And so when I think of great comics that I admire, I think they are true to themselves, you know, and they talk about their experiences that they went through. You know, you think of all the comics in New York and so many great Jewish comics who joke about some of that Jewish culture and stuff like that. So I kind of am like, that joke was a bit of an experiment to say, could I do jokes about my upbringing and about my going to church and picking hymns and giggling about saying the Lord side, uh, and hopefully yes, hopefully, and then if I went too far, I don't mind when people go, hey, it's too far for me. I go, that's good to know. I want to know where I'm hitting for my audience to be happy. At the same time, I think as a comic, you have to. I think you have to kind of do the best you can and believe in yourself. Like, go, okay, I think that's good. Because if you end up apologizing for too many jokes, especially now, you're gonna have a hard time writing jokes. Like, you're
Well,
gonna.
you are, and you don't want to paint yourself into a corner there where you're kind of stunting your growth as a comedian, because you gotta write what's funny, and church people are funny, dude. I mean, church
Yeah,
people are
yeah, they
really
are.
really funny, man. It's tons of jokes. I mean, and we blame everything on the devil.
That's
Everything's
right.
the devil's fault.
That's right.
You cut the lights on, there's the devil again. No, you
There's
didn't
the
pay the light.
devil. Yeah,
You didn't pay the light bill.
the devil. The devil.
That was your fault. He doesn't pay the bills around here. You do. So just
Yeah.
be careful with that. And if people say things like, I've been saved. I got saved when I was 8 years old.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, what crimes and misdemeanors did you commit at 8 years old? I don't. That kind of
Yeah.
confuses me a little bit. But no, but Steve, people get really angry in church very easily, and you got to decide. Is this something I'm going to hold back on because I don't want to make them bad, or am I going to tell it because I just personally think it's funny? You always have to stick to what you think is funny if you want to maximize,
Right.
yourself as a comic.
Yeah.
Playing
Yeah.
it safe can be, it can be a difficult deal, and I've had some. I decided a while back I wasn't going to do that anymore because I used to kind of hold back on certain things. Well, I don't want to make them mad or what have you. Let me
Right.
ask you this, Steve. What is the biggest thing that you have personally learned in comedy since you started that's made you better?
You know, and I think you even already said it, but it's believing in yourself,
Yeah.
which sounds so simple because like we've heard that across the board. Be yourself, believe in yourself, all that. And sometimes I'll admit that like when somebody says like, "Hey, be yourself," I'm like, there's part of me that's tempted to be like, "Okay," and real quick, who do you think that is? Because I'm not sure. Like eh, so some of it is just like having confidence to like take that step forward. Like it's a really, I mean, honestly, for me, it's also a faith-based thing where it's like, okay, I'm taking that step into the darkness. Um, and even if people don't laugh, this makes it sound like I'm a horrible comic, but if you don't get that initial laugh, keep going. Believe in yourself so hard that eventually that audience goes, this guy is funny.
Yeah.
Because I think if you don't think you're funny, then no, they're not gonna think you're funny, man. There's no way you're gonna convince them if you haven't convinced yourself.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, like, I've tried really hard to believe in myself, but then also recognize like my self-worth doesn't go up or down based on a good show, bad show, whatever. My self-worth is infinite, and I'm already of great value just right here, right now. Um, and like me having a great show or having a bad show doesn't change that. I still am someone who's of infinite worth, and that combined with believing in myself has been like that's changed my everything. But I still am working on it. There's never like a day where I don't like have to be like, hey man, you are valuable. You're a to honestly to use like there's scripture stuff with that, not to be like churchy or whatever, but yeah, or whatever you believe, right? You don't have to be like a church person. You still know that you have worth, whoever you are.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I think that I like what you said too about you tell that joke that you believe in, but you're not getting anything, and you're in your zone of funny, and you have to power through those things, and that's something that I discussed with some comedians recently about being comfortable in silence on stage. You know,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
because that's when we start freaking out and going, "Oh, I'm bombing." No, you calm down. Calm down. You're not bombing. You're in control here. Stick with your stuff and don't let them see you sweat. Just do your deal and say your piece. Doggone it. Just say your
Yeah.
piece.
One of my favorite comics said something like that. Patrice O'Neill,
Okay.
amazing, great comic, said the worst thing you can do if you're bombing is to try not to bomb.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, just do your stuff. Believe in you. You're funny, man.
But
You're
that
not you
takes
didn't start to be
time,
a
though,
comic 'cause
Steve.
you're fat.
Yeah, I love that by Patrice O'Neill, and it takes time to get to that point on stage. I was talking about Dave Chappelle, for example, with some
Mhm.
comedians not too long ago about how, and I don't know if you've seen any of his recent stuff during the pandemic, but you know, Dave Chappelle is completely comfortable in silence on stage, and he's got his little cigarette and he's
Yeah.
pontificating about whatever he's pontificating about, and he's in control. He's in total
Yeah.
control. He can go 3 minutes with no reaction from the crowd and no laughter. And because he's under control, because they're paying attention, I mean, they are hanging on every word because he's under control. And then when he wants to pull the trigger and get him to laugh, he's able to do it, because he's not afraid of silence.
I love that. Yeah, that's absolutely true. He's one of the masters, really.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Dave Chappelle is an absolute master, and matter of fact, He's from the DC area, whereas that's where I've been getting my
Right.
comedy chops. Washington D.C. I don't know if you did mention that you would like to come to D.C. one day. Would love to have you in D.C. because Washington D.C. is probably one of the toughest comedy towns that you'll experience. Because I
Yeah.
think, and I would not have known that had I not gone out to other places like San Diego and Miami and what have you, because it was so much easier in those places. But people in
Yeah.
DC are like politically minded. They're too politically minded, and they're brazen. They're angry. It gets freaking cold, and they're like, they overanalyze jokes. They're sitting back, and everything has to make sense. It's not
Yeah.
like you go
Yeah.
to Philadelphia or New York or Atlanta or LA or Houston, not to take anything away from those cities. But, people are just come and have a good time. So if you're willing to get up there and, get some good ones off, you're generally going to do well. But in DC, you don't get free laughs in DC. You just don't get them.
No.
They'll sit, and I'm like, can somebody get this guy a martini? But no, the guy, he's sitting here, Steve, and it's like they check. Oh, that's funny because you got to check all the boxes. So they
Yeah.
force you to write well in DC. And then you look at Dave Chappelle's from DC, Martin Lawrence is from DC, Wanda Sykes is from DC, Tommy Davidson, Mike Birbiglia, Earthquake, a lot of really, really good comics
Yeah.
are from the DC area. And they just force you to write well in this town, dude. You got to come up here one of these days, Steve.
I got to. I did a years ago, like a little Irish pub there in DC. And I remember thinking, all right, this is everyone always says everybody here's type A or whatever.
Yeah.
Which I was like, I don't
that's true as well.
even know what that means. But yeah, learning how to do. And now more than ever, it does feel like people want you to like choose like party lines and stuff like that. And there's part of me that's like, look, there's part from each party that I'm like, okay, no, yeah, that's good too, though. And there's part of me that's like, why are we? I don't know. It's hard because if you kind of feel like, yeah, I agree with that guy, people are like, oh, you shouldn't agree. And I'm in a red state, and sometimes where I'm like, hey, I didn't like the way Donald Trump did that thing, and they go, oh, you should like him. I'm like, I can like and dislike what anybody does, it doesn't matter. I don't have to choose a side. Maybe I do, maybe I'm wrong, but
well, that's one thing as comics, I think that, because we're in a PC culture big time now. It's not like the 70s with Richard Pryor and George Carlin and Rodney Dangerfield and people like that, Red Fox. I mean, those guys, they said anything. I mean, dude, they threw out racial slurs. I mean, the whole nine. And nobody got mad because they were just jokes. We saw them for what they were. It was real. They weren't lying, and they had the guts to not care. And it was
right.
But in this day and age, you have to know how to navigate through this stuff. Dick Gregory, he's another one you throw out. I mean, talk about anything. And it was just wildly hilarious. Not so much in this day. It takes a different type of Paul Mooney, another
love Paul Mooney, yeah.
A different type of comedian to survive in the culture of 2021. So, and matter of fact, I believe it requires an extra skill how you can get people to laugh and not, get angry because, you offended this group or you said something politically wrong that offended the Republicans. Well, I don't care. We're here to have a good time. If you didn't come to have a good time, you should never have walked in the door, because that's what a comedy show is for. Understand you may get picked on, or you might not get picked on, or you might hear some stuff that sounds kind of crazy. But at the end of the day, this is about laughing. So relax.
Yeah. Yeah. And I can't imagine how we're going to ever get to like where we want to have like this unified, because in my mind, I think we would love to see the United States be more unified.
Yeah.
And it's like, man, if we can't laugh, how are we going to get to that unity point? Because to me, that's what, man, when I laugh with somebody, I feel so much more like that's my friend, you know, I'm connected to them. And if I'm not going to ever allow myself to get to that point, it's like you put up these walls that just makes me sad. I'm like, oh man, we
Yeah,
need
you're
comedy
right.
now more than ever.
And
Yeah.
you know, especially with the Donald, it's so easy to offend somebody about Donald Trump. Donald Trump's the biggest comedian of them all. I mean, and I mean,
That's right.
after and he proved he was the biggest comedian of them all. After losing the election, he said, "I'll be here all week."
Oh, really?
What? That's a
That's pretty
comic.
funny. That's I didn't even hear that. That's funny.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'll
we
be
gotta
here all
laugh,
week.
man. Dang it.
True comedian, true comedian. Let me, hey,
I like
Steve,
that. That's funny.
let
He
me
gave
ask
us
you
lots of
this.
laughs.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's all a joke. Everybody relax. Take it easy. Let me ask you this, Steve. Do you
Yeah.
still do open mics to work on your material?
Yeah, I do. As much as writing helps, nothing is like the stage. And
Yeah.
so that's been something that I'm lucky here. The local club where I work out of here, Wise Guys, they do a good job at having just reading the Qbert comment. Old school reference too. I love it. Yeah, like nothing helps. Like doing stage time, you have to do that. I'll do with my phone. Like I'll do like when we didn't have any open mics, I would
Yeah.
tell jokes to my friends on like FaceTime or whatever app you want to use
Yeah.
to try to get that feedback and just get that rhythm and stuff like that. I don't know if new comics ever watch this or whatever, and people who maybe aren't comics are like, I have no idea who you are. So they might think I'm a new comic too. That's the weird thing, is that comics, when you start to get to know them, odds are they've been at it about 10 years.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it's like, it's not an art form that is going to lend itself to be doing this right off the bat.
No,
Like when you
not
see
at all.
those little kids on American Idol or whatever, not America's Got Talent or whatever, and they're little kids and they sing incredible, and that's awesome. And I'm there's no doubt that they are talented beyond degree, but comics, you have to work at it for a while. I don't know why, but you're not going to get it right off the bat, and if you do, odds are you just peaked. Like I've
And you
never
know
known a
what?
comic who's
It's
great right off the bat.
it's interesting you mentioned America's Got Talent and comics. I did America's Got Talent in, oh man, it must have been 2018. I went there to audition in Philadelphia, dude, and it was so many people. There's so many talented people in this freaking
Yeah.
nation. It's amazing. But so there were so many people there, man. So they took about 20 of us to a room, and I went in there, man, and I mean, I'm doing my routine, and everybody's laughing in that place. I mean, I'm winning. I'm going to the next level. I was certain of it.
Nice.
This kid, probably no more than 11 years old. You talk about singing. He walked up there and he sang like an angel. And I looked at everybody else and that was competing. I said, "Well, guys, this has been fun. Great experience."
Yeah. Good to
We were
meet
not going to
you.
beat that kid. That kid
Yeah.
was awesome, man. And and there goes my experience with America's Got Talent. But no, I just said that to
Yeah.
say, in comedy, it's just a different deal, man. It takes a while to really, really master stand up.
Yeah.
Takes a while.
And you got to keep working at it. Like if as we see comics who do start to tour, a lot of them are like, hey, I got to, knock the rust off here. It's been a while kind of thing. Yeah. So that I'll hit open mic as much as I can or do whatever version of open mic I can. I mean, honestly, the goal for me was to be on stage at least 5 times a week. That was the goal in 2020. So I didn't hit that at all, and so this year, it's different. So I still am trying to get on stage of some sort at least twice a week, even if it is virtual,
Yeah.
because
Well,
whatever you can do.
where are you located exactly, Steve?
Yeah, right now I live in Salt Lake City,
Salt Lake
so
City. So are they
in the
doing
middle of
stuff are
nowhere.
they doing stand up outside or anything like that?
Yeah, like there's some outdoor venues. Like when it was uh now they're starting to go indoors and doing some where they'll have like one group here, one group here, very everybody's segregated with like
Yeah.
6 feet all around them kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so like there's a club downtown that fits like 300, but they'll do like 100, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm trying to think I think that might be the cap for uh indoor gatherings right now. I don't remember what it is, but you got to have a certain amount of square footage, and I think they have like enough that they can have 100 people. Um, and then I'll be doing like this weekend. I'm going up to Idaho, tiny town that I have never been to. Rupert is the name of it, and they have a theater up there, and they're like, yeah, the theater fits like this many, but we're only going to sell out this many or whatever.
Yeah.
So, so I'm getting out there doing a little bit here and there. It's still like, just a simmer compared to what it used to be. But hopefully, I think as the vaccine gets rolling out and stuff like that, it seems like we're doing better as a nation as far as getting out of this whole not doing live shows and stuff.
Are you the type of comedian, Steve, where you will, you'll perform anywhere? You don't have preferred environments or venues. If you're asked to perform, regardless to the environment, et cetera, demographic, whatever, are you the type of guy that will perform anywhere?
I mean, right now, yes, absolutely. I guess I say right now because there is a degree where you want to set up the show for as much success as possible.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think of a show I did one time. This is pre-pandemic, but it was an amphitheater. And right before I went on stage, they said, "Oh, by the way, there's free pizza in the back." And it was like college students.
Yeah.
And so they all took off to the back and are all, getting pizza and stuff like that. And they're like, "And Steve Soelberg." And I was like, "Hey, oh, okay." First 10 minutes of my set was just trying to get them back.
Yeah.
So I still try to control the situation to be good for comedy, but yeah, man, I mean, whatever. If I can get a chance, I'm going to go for it. And hopefully it was a good show or whatever.
I saw Brian Regan do an interview on this particular subject, and I found it quite amazing. Brian Regan is one of the funniest guys I've ever seen. I mean, Brian Regan, and he's a clean comic, and Brian Regan was talking about during his early years of stand-up where, because Brian was performing every night, sometimes twice a night. He was so determined that he was going to figure this thing out. So anyway, long story short, there were different demographics coming in every night, second show, different demographic, yada, yada, whatever. And he noticed that were a lot of comics that would base whether or not they would perform that night on the demographic coming through the door. And Brian Regan thought that was like ridiculous. He's like, are you trying to be a good comic or what? I don't care who's out there. My job is to make them laugh. And I thought that was interesting watching Brian Regan because I look at Brian Regan. The dude is absolutely hilarious. And you know what? He can make anybody laugh because of he's just mastered his style. He has a style and he's mastered it. And I can imagine him in an urban room killing.
Yeah.
I can imagine him killing in an urban room. And because he's so sold out to the craft. And that's the difference maker, and over the years, I've kind of learned that it doesn't, the demographic, environment, in venue, side of town, it just doesn't matter.
And it's funny that you mentioned like doing the urban and rooms, because I did a room in Philly one time.
Yeah.
And it was obvious that it's like, yeah, you're gonna be the only white guy there.
Yeah.
And I'm like, either I can be like, oh no, they're not going to connect with me.
Yeah.
Or I can realize like I have an advantage here because I'm like, this is unique, and I want to be able to play up that where it's like, hey, look at this goofy white kid come in, and it's like you want to be able to stand out. And already I am standing out, so that's awesome. Like make it your thing and use it, and don't back down.
There you go.
And that's the right way to do it. But like, because I've seen I went on tour with some of the dry bar comics a while back, and one of the comics' good friend Jay Whitaker is black, and we went and did a show in Albany, New York, and had a great time in one room. And then Jay's like, "Hey, they got like this all black show over here, so I'm gonna go do that." And talking to Jay after the show, I was like, "Which show were you more nervous for?" And he goes, "Oh man, the show where it was all black," because then he's like, you have to be funny. There's no like, let him warm up. He's like, dude, black rooms are like, you better be funny now. Like,
Yeah.
no letting you get into it and stuff like that.
Let me add one thing to that, and it goes back to what we were discussing earlier about being comfortable in silence. Yes, that's true. However, if you are like completely settled into your style, you're going to get respect. You might not.
I like that.
You know what I mean? It's like the silence level may be there for a while, but you will get them eventually because they notice that you are not intimidated by them.
Yeah, that makes sense. Throwback to the famous Bernie Mac set, right? Everybody knows it, and everybody thinks about it when it's like he's not scared, and at
the end of the day, you're 100% correct. It's just like the Bernie Mac analogy. It's like you cannot be scared. It's like that is what will kill you in a black room. If you come out there and you're not sure about whatever it is you're going to do, you're toast. But you come out and go, okay, this is my thing. This is my deal. Like, for example, I could see you killing with your style in an urban room. If you go in, commit it to your style because you're very funny. Well, people are going to go, okay, all right. He's different. This is a different kind of dude right here. But you are in your style, right? You're going to kill him. I mean, you're hilarious. You've got great wit. You got great timing and pace, all of that. But it's just Steve Soelberg. And you stick with that style anywhere, and you're going to do well.
I love that. That's so true, man. And because it's so tempting to play, I always try to tell new comics, you should know your audience, but I don't try to play to my audience, if that makes sense. Like I know them, and I can go, okay, they might like this joke, that joke, that joke. But if I try to play to them, where I'm like, what do they want me? What do they think about me? It's like you're trying to read their mind. Don't do that. Just do what you think is funny. And then if like I'm going to Idaho this weekend, so it's like, yeah, I'm gonna try to find out something about their local region or whatever that I can joke about, so then they feel connected. But I'm not gonna try to like read their mind and be like, what do they think is like, no, don't do that. Just do what you think is funny.
There you go. Steve, this has been, man, this was a quick hour, man. I could talk to you, man, a heck of a lot longer. I hate the fact we're gonna have to wrap it up. Not only that, I got a Zoom open mic I'm going to go do in a few minutes here.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, man. But no, it's been great having you on the show. How can fans follow you on social media or hire you for booking?
Yeah, everything is associated with my name. So just if you want to find me on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, whatever you use, it's just Steve Soelberg. You can see it there on the screen. And then for hiring, just stevesoelberg.com. You can reach out to my agent there on the last page, or there's a contact me directly. My agent will handle all like college bookings and stuff like that, whereas I kind of handle the other stuff.
Awesome stuff, Steve. Awesome, man. Thank you so much for being on the show. And once this pandemic is over and we're done laughing our way through this, because that's the only way to get through it. Let's just laugh our
That's
way
right.
through it. Maybe we can hook up, man. And, you know, you can come out to DC, man, and do some comedy, man. It'd be great.
I would love that
if we could do that, man. We got to stay in touch.
Definitely, definitely.
Well, look, God bless you, Steve. May the peace of Christ be with you and your family, brother. God bless you, man.
God bless you. Thank you, Maurice. Have a good one.